Hello again. If you remember on one of my other videos, I was explaining that I had to make some new undercarriage for the EC135 as the Vario skid struts and skid tubes were just too small. Anyway, as I said, I had to use 16mm outside diameter aluminium tubing to make the skid bars, and chances are if you make skid bars that's bigger than what they would normally be, you'll probably have to make your own end caps, which I had to do also. And I just want to go on and just show you how I done those, just in case anybody is wondering how I made them. Okay then, materials needed. First of all, you need some Play-Doh or some plasticine to make the mould with. Secondly, you need something more or less the same shape and diameter that you want of the end cap that you're trying to produce. And you need your epoxy glue. Obviously you need the hardener and the resin. You can use fiberglass resin if you want to, but you'll find that with these being small parts that we're making, the fiberglass resin is a lot more difficult to sand, and it's a lot harder to keep a hold of as well. Lastly, you need 3-in-1 oil. That's for to go into the mould when you make the mould with the Play-Doh. You know, just to stop this sticking in place when you press it in, just to make the impression. Right, get yourself a lump of Play-Doh about this sort of size. Just give it a bit roll in your hand just to warm it up a little bit. Place it on something flat, and quite simply just put your hand on it and just sort of flatten it down like that to make it into like a cake type shape. That's great, like that. Okay, secondly, if you get the shape that you're going to make the impression with, and you want to get a little bit of the 3-in-1 oil, okay, just put a little tiny drop of 3-in-1 oil on the end there, and a little bit on the top there like that. That's all you need, just a drop. Just rub it on the top like that, and then just rub the other little bit on there like that. You can always just rub the excess off if you want to. Okay, so you've got a little bit of 3-in-1 oil on the end there, a little bit on there. This just helps it from sticking in too much when you make the impression. Right, get your the piece that you're going to make the impression with, put it in the centre, and just quite simply just press it in like that. Just a little tiny bit of pressure. Don't push it in too far because you don't want it made too deep. And then sometimes you've got to put your fingers on like that to just withdraw it. Just turn it gently and pull at the same time, and it comes out like that. And then you can, if you have a look, you can see that you've got the hole for the skid cap in there. So that's that part made. So we need to next go on to mix the epoxy glue for to pour into it. Okay. You can see that I've got the epoxy glue here mixed. I'll not need to go into how you mix the epoxy glue up, because being modellers, we all know how much, the correct amounts of hardener and resin to put in to mix epoxy glue successfully. But as you saw, the stuff that I'm using is the Z-Epoxy 5-minute stuff. Anyway, we've got it mixed up, so what we need to do now is we need to pour it into the mould. Okay, so get some on the little spatula and just drip it in. You can see just dripping into the hole there like that. Just let it go in. This is the I would say this is the hardest part about doing it, because you don't want to get any epoxy glue outside the hole. It's all got to be in the hole. So it's just a case of just dabbing it like that until you get any little sort of long ends off your spatula like that. Now you can see there, if you have a look there, you can see that it needs a little tiny bit more in. It's not quite to the top. So just a little bit more, just add it in bit by bit. You don't want too much going in, otherwise it's going to come out over the top and it'll spoil the plug. So you just got to let it just drip in like that. You can see coming off there now, and just dab it in, and just dab it in like that, and just let it settle itself. Don't try and force it to settle, otherwise you'll just push it out and it'll just come over the sides and it'll spoil the whole thing. Now that there, I would say that needs a tiny touch more. If you just look at it, if you look at it like edge on, you can see that there's a slight dip in the centre. And whenever I mix epoxy glue, for some reason I always mix a lot more than what I need. So there's loads of it ends up getting wasted, but that's just me anyway. Anyway, let's try and get a little bit more in just to fill the dip in the middle there. Now that there, by the time that settles, that should be pretty much okay there. I would say that's up to the top there. As I said, you can use fiberglass resin, but you'll find that when you take the end caps out of the mould, with them being that small, the fiberglass resin is a lot harder to sand. So the epoxy is a fair bit easier, which is why I use that. Plus, it goes off quicker as well, so you can get on with the job a bit quicker as well. Right. So we can't do anything more now until the epoxy sets. So I think the next thing to do is the best time in any modelling, and that's cup of tea time. Right, tea break over. I've given the epoxy about it's had a good half an hour or so to go off, so that should be nice and hard there now. So what we need to do now is we need to remove it from the mould, which is dead easy to do. Just get a hold of it and just start and just peel the plasticine back over like that. Still be careful with it, just in case there might still be one or two little soft areas on the epoxy. But you know, get your finger under the centre and start and push it up, and you can see there it's starting to. If I hold it up to the camera there, you can see a little bit better. It's starting to come out there now. You just peel it out, just push it back like that until you can get a hold of it. When you take it out of the mould, be very, very careful with the edges, because obviously you don't want to damage the edges in any way. You know, otherwise it's going to spoil the effect of it when it's on the skid. Having said that, you'll probably find that when you glue the end cap onto the end of the skid tube, you'll probably find that when you prime it to paint it, you'll have a few little pinholes in the end that you can't really avoid. That it's just with air being in the mould, you know, caught between I think the mould and the epoxy, or in the epoxy, or whatever it is. So you will have to fill those in. They're just little tiny pinholes, but I had to do that on my EC135. I had a few on the end of there. But anyway, you can see the cap there, you can see the end cap there, and you can see it's got quite a pronounced dome effect on the end. I mean, you could make that any shape you like. It just depends what you happen to have to hand at the time, you know, to make it with. You could have a sort of more a more gentle dome shape rather than quite a high one like that, but I think that one looks okay. I mean, that's the ones that I've got on my EC135 are exactly the same as those. I don't mind the same way. Right, anyway, that's we're done with the Play-Doh anyway. So what we need to do now is quite simply just roll it back up into a bowl. Remember, you've got the oil on it, or you know, the cooking oil or whatever. It could be anything you want to use. Just pop it back in there. Just put the lid on, and then that's fine for the next time. And remember, you can use the same sort of method to make lots of different small parts. If as long as you've got something to press into the mould to to give you the shape that you need, you just mix up the epoxy glue in the way I've showed you. Just pour it into the mould, let it go off, and then bring it out of the mould, and you've got your part. Just a case of finishing it, ready for painting. So if you go to the next video, I'll show you how to finish it off and attach it to the skid tube.